Hello there. Welcome to Nigerian Doctors Abroad. I'm Tessie Ajala. Nigerian Doctors Abroad is designed to utilize television and social media to showcase medical practitioners abroad. From the United States, from Europe, Canada, and the Middle East. All in an attempt to improve the image and the work of Nigerian doctors abroad and to showcase such associations as the Association of Nigerian Physicians in the Americas, Medical Association of Nigerians across Great Britain, Canadian Association of Nigerian Physicians and Dentists, Nigerian Medical Association, the Federal Ministry of Health, and most importantly, to create partnerships and build bridges between medical doctors abroad and those in Nigeria. It is a new day now, people. Nigeria is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And as for human resources, we are bleeding. We are bleeding scientists. We are bleeding especially doctors and nurses. It is time to start mobilizing Nigerian medical experts all around the world back to Nigeria. That's what this show is all about, people. The Association of Nigerian Physicians, ANPA, in the United States was incorporated in 1995. And this association represents more than 5,000 Nigerian medical practitioners registered within the association. They're physicians, dentists, and other allied health professionals. These are the doctors registered within the association, people. As a matter of fact, it is estimated that we have more than 20,000 Nigerian physicians abroad. 20,000. According to the Wall Street Journal, in the US alone, about 77% of black doctors and associations are Nigerians. They are willing to go back home and they are willing to assist in various ways to develop the health sector. We will be featuring some of the best and the brightest Nigerian doctors abroad on this show. We will be doing that to let Nigeria know what they need to come back home. This administration now has the opportunity to listen to the sons and daughters of Nigeria who are ready to come back to Nigeria from the United States, Europe, to contribute to Nigeria. On this show, we will build bridges between doctors at home and doctors abroad. We will help to create awareness so as to foster personal growth of Nigerian medical doctors. We will debate solutions. We will exemplify and showcase what works in health issues, healthcare generally. We will exchange ideas and knowledge. We will highlight strategic solutions for public health issues in Nigeria. We will help to broadcast medical missions coming from the US to Nigeria for people to take advantage of it. All in an effort to enhance public health in Nigeria. And we will continue to highlight collaborative research projects that have and will improve public health and costs in Nigeria. The time is now, people. From the United States, we need to bring the cream of the crop of Nigerian medical doctors abroad back home to Nigeria. You're welcome onto the show, Dr. Nyawo. I'm pleased that you can make it. I'm pleased that you found time out of your busy schedule to join us. Thank you for the good work that you are doing here in the United States. You're one of the very few ones trying so hard to go back at home and practice. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, my name is Dr. Benjamin Enyawo. As you can see, I'm a Nigerian. I work here in the United States. I did go to medical school in Nigeria. I went to University of Nigeria, Soka, and after my training, I did the usual housemanship in Nigeria and then the youth service and Then after that, I went to the Caribbean island where I taught in a medical school. I taught neurosciences for about 6 years in my quest to greener pastures. Ultimately, I came here to the United States and did a residency in neurology. And when I finished a neurology residency, I pursued an extra fellowship in stroke and neurocritical care. So I'm a stroke specialist. In addition, I'm also an intensive care neurologist dealing with several high level and complicated neurological problem and neurosurgical problem.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That begs the question, with all your training and specialization, why are we here in the United States? Why are the cream of the crop of Nigerian doctors in the United States and abroad?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I've heard this question asked in several situations and several scenarios. You know, the bitter truth about it is that all of us who are here, I would summarize it by saying we are all economic immigrants. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not just for money. When I say economic migrants, I'm talking about we're here because of the financial reasons. We make more money here. We're also here for the social reasons. We're here for the job security. We're here for personal security. We're here for the good roads. We're here for our children, even in recent times. So for those of us who have stayed here long enough to have children, you're here for your children because you want better education, you want a better future for them. That's why we're here. But, you know, like I tell people, east, west, north, and south, home is the best. At the end of the day, we're Nigerians, and Nigeria is our home.
That's right. And the point is, a lot of Nigerian doctors want to come to the United States. A lot want to go to Europe, to many other parts of the world. Are you saying that Nigerian doctors don't get paid enough in Nigeria as it is today, 2015?
Well, I don't know if it's, again, like I said economic immigrants doesn't necessarily mean that just the money you get and put in your pocket. You know, there are several reasons why people leave. You know, people also leave because they want to practice at their best. They want to practice at the top of their license.
So the best is not in Nigeria for Nigerian doctors?
Absolutely. And everybody will agree with that.
Well, there's got to be some credit to practicing in Nigeria. Could you give me some of those credits?
Well, you know, the credit is that you're treating your own. And at some point, you have to treat your own. You know, I've been here for how many decades now? And while I'm here, I've lost my father and my sister who died in her 40s. For reasons that nobody's yet to explain to me, you know, things that I feel that could be easily fixed, you know. So at the end of the day, you know, those that are there, I give them kudos, I give them credit. I mean, I adore them and I applaud them because they're saving lives. Because without them, you know, what would happen to our people? I don't see myself as being better than them just because I'm in the United States of America practicing, but I actually have a lot of respect for those who are there, and hence the reason why I think that we have to figure out a way to support them, and those of us who have now acquired the training and probably have reached the reasonable job satisfaction of what we're doing here, we have to find a way to say, let's go back and help those people save more lives.
The issue of diagnosis. You have lost people. I have recently lost some of my friends, very young, active, and their best at the moment, as a result of wrong diagnosis. Right. Why does that seem to be an endemic problem in medical practice in my country, in Nigeria?
So, you know, there are probably several reasons. I'm only going to highlight some of the reasons that I think is a problem. But however, before I even go there, you got to understand that unlike in the United States and several Western countries where anybody who's determined can basically go to medical school, in Nigeria, the people who go to medical school are the best of the best. You know, they're really top of the line in their classes, in their schools, in their colleges. So I want to make sure that we are all assured that Nigerian doctors are very smart, and hence the reason why they excel here. The problem is infrastructure. The problem they're having is the same problem that all segments of the Nigerian economy is having. You know, where, you know, maybe not the right word to use, but, you know, there's massive corruption, there's lack of accountability, there's insecurity, and at the end of the day, people get frustrated and they find shortcuts, and that has steadily over time permeated the medical industry, where people find shortcuts to prove that they know what they're doing. You know, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the diagnostics to come up with the right diagnosis, but they come up with some sort of answer. You know, is their answer correct? No, but you know, they're practicing based on what they know best to do.
I'm in my 50s right now, and the issue of medical infrastructure in Nigeria has been a challenge since I could ever start to read, to learn. And we still have the same problem right now. Tell me things are improving. Are things improving?
Well, I'm sorry to say no. You know, a lot of people will argue and say, oh no, it's getting better. But if it's getting better, why are people going to India? You know, why do people prefer to go outside Nigeria for better healthcare? The truth is this: government has no business being in the business of healthcare. Government does not do anything well. You know why? Because of government bureaucracy. It has nothing to do with the Buhari government. It has nothing to do with the Jonathan government. It has nothing to do with the Obasanjo government. We have to figure out a way to let government focus on regulation. Let government focus on helping the industry grow by ensuring standards, rather than government running large teaching hospitals and spending a large amount of money in healthcare the way they're doing it. In the United States, for instance, what drives healthcare in this country is the private sector. In Nigeria, it's completely opposite. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand government has a role because we're third world countries. But government roles should probably be limited in primary healthcare, in vaccination, ensuring that kids all get vaccinated, ensuring that there is improvement in the mortality and morbidity of pregnant women, ensuring that we control and eradicate polio, we control and eradicate malaria. That is the level government should focus. Beyond that, they should hand that over to the private sector and find a way to regulate it. I'll give you an example. Think about what happened in the 50s. Think about what Nigeria struggled with the telecommunications industry. For years, for decades, what happened? How were we able to change that? When we decided to pull off and allow people to invest in that, and then we now began to regulate them. Yes, the regulation had not been very well coordinated over the years, but we're beginning to see changes. If you look at in the news, just recently, MTN was just levied more than $1 billion in order to recover some of, as a fine for something government wanted them to do that they didn't do. That's what we need to do in healthcare industry.
I completely agree with you. The privatization of the telecommunications industry in Nigeria made things better for telephone in Nigeria. Everybody will agree with that. And from what I'm hearing from a lot of Nigerian doctors abroad, the healthcare sector in Nigeria, it's about time it needs to be privatized so that the specialists can take care of business the way business is supposed to be taken care of. Of course, we know that the healthcare system in Nigeria has been managed by the federal government, funded by the federal government, all of the university, teaching hospitals, and so on and so forth. But it's about time for the government to listen up to Nigerian doctors abroad, saying that we have to shift. We have to shift how we do business in healthcare. We have to start shifting the money to private practice so that Nigeria's health infrastructure and the management of healthcare can be better. Thank you so much for that point. Now, about the issue of going to India, I heard from a few physicians that we spend probably close to 50 billion every year going to India for treatment. And the last time I checked, some of the Nigerian doctors here are some of the best in the world. Whatever it is that Nigerians are going to India to do, they could very well do the same thing in Nigeria. Help me out here.
So, it's interesting. Is healthcare, is medical tourism helpful in Nigeria? Yes. Is it the best? Absolutely no. Because, our people go to India, we spend all of this money. There's no metrics to even understand the kind of healthcare they're receiving there. There's no evidence to say, okay, fine, How did you make this decision for that patient? I mean, if you talk to several people, they can give you a lot of stories of people who went to India for one thing and it came out to be another thing, and the amount of money people spend all the time. Now, this is my take on it. You go to India, you get a health care for medical tourism. Then who follows you up when you come back to Nigeria? Who's the doctor that you see? I mean, I remember about 6 months ago, I got a call from somebody who actually looked me up on the internet and was talking to me about a dad who went to India for something and needed a neurologist in Nigeria. They couldn't find a good neurologist, according to them. But, ultimately, from my discussion, now let me cut it short to say, what he had was not even a neurological problem. So Nigeria last year alone spent about 250 billion naira going to India. That's about $1.6 billion.
Wow.
And now, this is not my figures. Now, if you convert it to present day money, look at how much we're talking about. And yet we're busy talking about saying that, our economy is not healthy, we need foreign exchange, we're relying on oil, crude oil, and yet we have all these very well-trained professionals down here in the United States and everywhere in the world for that matter. Look, again, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet. I have been successful in rising from my position as a Nigerian doctor in the United States to become the chief of neurology where I work. Okay? So every patient that comes to my facility, ultimately I am sort of responsible for what happens, the care my colleagues give. And this includes Americans, this includes foreigners who come to the United States to give to receive health care. Why is it that people like me and thousands and hundreds and thousands of people like me cannot go back home and replicate the same thing? Why do we keep bleeding? Why do our people keep receiving poor health care? For one reason, there is no enabling environment for people like us to come back home. Remember, I tell you that the so-called Indian healthcare industry you're hearing was actually nurtured and brought into what it is today by Indian doctors who trained in the United States and the UK who went back home.
That's right.
That's how that worked. So, to answer your question a little bit further, what can the government do to do this? Now, I've heard the government talk about all different things about the things we have to do to improve the economy. We're talking about solid mineral, we're talking about petroleum, we're talking about all sorts of things, which I believe is actually very good. Now, keep in mind that in 2012, the International Finance Corporation estimated the healthcare business in sub-Saharan Africa to be about $25 to $30 billion. 25 to $30 billion. Now, low-hanging fruit. If Nigeria were to invest in healthcare in the appropriate way, the government were to create an enabling environment to attract these almost 20-something thousand physicians you're talking about, even 1% of them, to come back to Nigeria to build sustainable healthcare system that replicate what we're doing here in America. Can you imagine what will happen to the Nigerian economy? All that money we're shifting to India, we're shifting to Germany, we're shifting to the United States is going to come back to us. All the West African countries around us, Cameroon, Ghana, Gambia, Senegal, they're going to come to us. Can you imagine how much we are neglected as a country by not using what we have already paid for? Understand that I got my education, the total amount of money that my parents spent on my education was probably less than $1,000 when I trained in Nigeria. What does it mean? It means that Nigeria spent all of that money on me, on thousands of us, and we leave Nigeria brain drain, which has been identified as one of the factors militating against growth in sub-Saharan Africa. Why can't we figure out a way, the same thing that India did, to attract these people back?
And that begs the question to the government of Nigeria, to the people of Nigeria, to the investors in Nigeria, to the stakeholders in Nigeria. That begs the question. Why can't we do the things they did in a place like India, where they brought medical doctors back to the country, and people from Nigeria were going to India? Why can't we do the same thing? We have the brains, we have the money, we have the infrastructure at least to get it started. This is a voice of reason, and this is why we have this show. We have this show for you guys to start to think about how to make things better and how to mobilize Nigerian doctors back to Nigeria. By the way, Doctor, so do you have any ideas for this present administration? What are some of the things that you think that this present administration can start to do to make a change?
So I think they say charity begins at home. I'll tell you the truth is that government has to begin to, I'm not suggesting they're going to take their hands off from healthcare overnight, but government has to begin to implement changes that reflect good business practices.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. You go to teaching hospitals. Who do you think is in charge of teaching hospitals? A medical doctor, the CMD. Why does the chief medical director of the hospital has to be in charge of the administration and the finance of the hospital? Doctors are not trained to manage or be administrators, unless, of course, if you go for extra training to acquire that. I am not a good administrator. Why can we not replace all those CMDs with good and seasoned administrators? You know, there are verifiable management companies in Nigeria. Why can we not appoint one of them? You know, a lot of them, I'm not going to give out names now, else people think that I'm trying to promote one business over the other. But why can we not appoint one of the management companies to manage these hospitals and be accountable to those money that is being put in those hospitals? Why can't government can begin to, in addition to doing that, saying, you know what, all the teaching hospitals that we're sending all this money to you, we need you to generate this amount of money in order for us to be able to balance, to give you back X amount of money. So I'll give you a simple example. So government says, your budget for this year is going to be, say, 500 million naira, whatever. I'm throwing a figure out there. You know what I'm saying? But for you to get this 500 million naira, 250 million of it is at risk. For you to be able to get this 250 million, you have to show that you can generate income within yourself for us to be able to match it. So for every, say, 50 million you generate, we'll match it by 100 million. For another 50 million, we'll give you another 100 million, making it 200 million. So we can start that. That is very, very easy to do so that we have some sort of accountability. Now, the other thing I think that very low-hanging fruit this government can do, very low-hanging fruit, is actually bring out money, build a prototype international standard medical center in Nigeria that again is now run from bottom to up by a management company. Remember, in the teaching hospitals, I suggested some sort of hybrid system between the doctors who are completely in charge now and the management company.
Yeah.
But then we build another one that is staffed by well-trained doctors, a mixture of local and foreign doctors with verifiable training who are going to work there. So that if you're walking into that hospital, you're going to get the same service you're going to get in Apollo Medical Center in India, or you're going to get in Georgetown University Hospital in the United States. The same service. It's independently run. Government has nothing to do with it. People are paid. People pay to come to that hospital. But in addition, that hospital can begin to train residents from other smaller teaching hospitals and other smaller hospitals around the country. Now, so that's number two. Number three thing I think the government can do is to create some sort of loan scheme that allows for healthcare investment. Similar to what we have done with agriculture, we can create a medical investment bank. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because I tell you, I have worked very hard with a lot of Nigerian physicians to try to get back into the Nigerian market. You know, for you to be able to build a good hospital, you're talking about millions of dollars. You know, unless you're trying to cut corners, then you're talking about maybe $1 million or $2 million. You're talking about upwards of 20, 30, $40 million to be able to do that. Then you approach a commercial bank in Nigeria, guess what the interest rate is? About 20 to 25%. And you start paying from the day they give you the money. So it's not sustainable. That's why people are not doing that. Mm-hmm. But if government can do what they have done for agriculture, for medical infrastructure, and say, if you come, we're going to get this interest rate very low. And the requirement for it is that not just I, Dr. Anyanwu, approaching the government and saying, approaching this man and saying, give me money. But if I'm able to partner with about 2 or 3 specialists in different fields, I'm a neurologist, I get a cardiologist involved, and I get a pulmonologist involved, and maybe I get one local doctor involved. The four of us can come together as a cooperative partnership and approach this bank and get a loan to build a hospital that is of international standard in Nigeria. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. These are little ways that you can stimulate the growth of the economy. So all of that money that is leaving is now going to stay. All of these sub-Saharan African countries that respect us quite a lot, actually, for our intellectual capability are going to come to us.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to be the multiplier effect?
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical industries are going to rise, just like it did in India.
Yeah.
Medical device companies are going to rise, just like it did in India. So now you're creating a substrate for people to now manufacture drugs, for people now to manufacture medical equipment. And what do you think you're doing? It's a multiplier effect. You're growing the economy in a neglected area, low-hanging fruit. And you know the interesting thing? This can be easily achieved within a 2 to 3 year lifespan of this government. By the end of this government, we're talking about Buhari's first-time administration. Buhari can effectively convert Nigeria to the medical tourism center of sub-Saharan Africa and stop this craziness and this export and exflux of our patients to India, and with it, of course, the huge foreign exchange that goes with it, huge foreign exchange that we need to develop other sectors of our economy.
There's a voice of reason, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope people in the government are listening. I hope people in charge are listening. We have to start. We have to start to do something to make a change in the health sector in Nigeria. Dr. Onyango, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Kelechi Emerionye, who is in his fellowship training here in the United States. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for finding time out of your busy schedule
Thank you
to join us. I really do appreciate you. In the grand scheme of things, how much work do we have to do, honestly, in Nigeria, in the medical world of Nigeria?
I would say it's enormous. There is really so much work has to be done because the state of medical healthcare delivery in Nigeria is very bad. If we put into consideration the people who should have access to quality healthcare, who do not have access to basic primary care healthcare services, that is just appalling. If you go to rural areas, people have little access to anything that represents what perhaps even the Federal Minister of Health hoped to achieve 20 years ago. There is untold decadence of facilities, infrastructure, and absolutely lack of manpower or the right personnel in the sector, especially as you go from the peripheries to the peripheries of most of the states across the country.
You know, I find it difficult to believe that over the years we are not making any strides. Is that true? There's got to be some credit to the health infrastructure in Nigeria, right?
Yes, there are.
Forgive me, I'm a bloody optimist.
Yes, there are, but it's just too little.
Too little.
Yes, we're still battling basic primary health care problems in the area of immunization. To the best of my knowledge, Nigeria still has a polio problem, and it's very concerning in Africa that we still have problem with polio and simple communicable diseases that perhaps immunization should be able to eradicate for a country like Nigeria.
So in your opinion, the Dr. Benjamin was able to give us a few examples of what the government can do in Nigeria. In your opinion, connecting the dots, what do you think the Nigerian government can start to do?
Essentially, I think it cannot be overemphasized. The point is, government is limited to what it can do.
Limited, did you say?
Yes, to what it can do directly. However, government has to establish the right environment for healthcare to grow. Government, of course, has to provide some basic health infrastructure and come up with policies that they can implement that will protect the industry and allow it to grow and draw investments into the country and protect it. We're talking of a country of nearly 200 million people. And if you consider what our GDP is and how much we spend on healthcare annually, both in Nigeria and abroad, that is enormous. There are just so many consortiums in the world and so many health companies and firms who will be interested in investing if you can protect their investment. So if you can provide security, provide basic amenities, and assure them that no new government will come up and simply withdraw their license for practice or take away their investments.
Well, ladies and gentlemen out there, in case you want to send us an email, you want to contact this program, please send your email, as you can see on your screens right now, to Nigerian Doctors Abroad at yahoo.com. Nigerian Doctors Abroad at yahoo.com. Could you tell me a little bit about your training here in the United States? How would you compare it to that in Nigeria?
I didn't necessarily want to compare what the U.S. has to provide to what a country like Nigeria has. However, I'm still grateful that I had to go to medical school in Nigeria. Without doubt, there's just a huge gulf between both countries when it comes to medical training. But what we should be talking about is how do we narrow that gulf and make it as infinitesimal as possible.
Well,
it's not impossible. Countries have done it.
Yes.
I can tell you that the private sector in a country like South Africa is great. And it's an African country, and some of the top hospitals in Africa, if you look at the rating, you have hospitals in countries like Egypt, who probably do not have as much resources as we do, and as much human resources as well as we do, both in Nigeria and in diaspora, if I might use that word. And they have facilities that are far more efficient and provide for their people much more than we do. I would say that what we should be focused on, and that is where I think government will have to be involved in, is again, providing better training for even our local doctors. They're doing the great job, they're doing the great work over there in Nigeria, but I think there is huge deficiency both in the personnel that are training and the quality of training they're getting. We should aim to get a far better quality of training. And if we are looking at the number, if we consider the number of doctors, and not just doctors, but professionals in the healthcare industry that we do have all over the globe, that means we simply have a free ticket for people to provide education for institutions in our country. And these are things the government can actually organize and ensure that it is done on a permanent basis. And at the very least, as we try to perhaps privatize the industry, provide better security and encourage investment, but at the same time, we're making sure that those who are qualified, who are training, are provided good, would I say, in-service training, and those who are in school are taught better. We can do that by utilizing the doctors we have that are well-trained all over the world, or the healthcare professionals that have very good quality, as I would put it, training. They can come home and help those who are in training do better. More so, I have also noticed that it seems that in a country like mine, and it's sad, that once you're qualified as a doctor, there's no other requirement for you to do any further training to keep your license. And that is a system that creates room for people to sit on their laurels and say, well, I'm qualified, I can do anything. I have been, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The issue of dues. I've heard a few Nigerian doctors abroad here complain that when they go back to Nigeria, they have to catch up on a lot of dues, and those dues are not forgiven. They have to pay so much. What do you think the Nigerian government, all these associations, all this licensing board can start to do to relieve people here in the United States so that they could be encouraged to come back home?
Yeah, it's good to put that in perspective, because it might affect a much younger doctor, a doctor who's just beginning more. I'm not sure it has a huge impact, but in general, beyond just things like dues, I think most of our parastatals should have very accessible online websites that can conveniently conduct business. I don't see why I have to travel to Nigeria to pay.
So you mean you can pay your dues in Nigeria on the
Well,
internet?
the last I checked, I'm not sure, but the last I checked, I couldn't. You can't do a lot of dealings with the ministry on the internet, and that can easily be fixed.
Yes, it's 2015 and that can easily be fixed. Nigerian doctors abroad, they have got to be able to pay their dues over the internet. They've got to be able to conduct business over the internet to make life easy for them. I can't imagine that guys have to fly all the way to Nigeria to be able to conduct business and pay their dues.
And I also make the argument that it should be extended to those in Nigeria. It's the same thing, whether you're in Lagos or you're in London. I mean, it should be the same thing. You shouldn't have to leave work and cancel your clinics so that you can go and pay dues. No, that
doesn't make any sense at all. And that's one of the things we need to fix here.
Be able to swipe your card. And
could you talk a little bit about linking practitioners in Nigeria with experts around the world, maybe through associations like ANPA?
Yes, associations like that can be involved in advising, having an adversarial role in government actually at very high level. And they do have people who have seen systems work better in more developed countries. And that can be tapped into. There's a lot of potential in that. It can be tapped into to help advice on how we move things forward.
I know that ANPA is always communicating with some of the government officials in Nigeria. I know that some of the health ministers visit ANPA, they come to some of ANPA's conferences. I will encourage other Nigerian medical practitioners in Nigeria to attend ANPA's conferences and attend medical conferences of other Nigerian doctors abroad in Canada, in Europe, and here in the United States. If you want to get across to us on this show, if you're interested in being on this show, you have comments that you want to send to us on this show is going to be on Nigerian television. It's on Nigerian television right now. It's going to be on the internet as well through YouTube. And you can email us at nigeriandoctorsabroad@yahoo.com. I'm Tessie Ajala. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
You're welcome, sir.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We are doing the best that we can here in the United States to let Nigeria and the Nigerian government know what Nigerian doctors abroad need in order to come back home. We are the foot soldiers. The time is now. It is urgent. We have to do what we can to contribute to the betterment of healthcare in Nigeria. Because a healthier Nigeria is a better Nigeria. From the United States, I'm Tessie Ajala. Thank you. I will see you next time.